bad dream if you haven't got yourself together. Because the only thing that you're going to actually see is another variation of yourself to the degree in which you understand yourself in your supreme stance. What am I talking about? I'm not trying to make you confused here. I'm telling you that what they're calling gods and supreme beings exist inside of you. They are asleep. That is why you are not exhibiting the potential that you really have. This frequency is called delta theta. It is very similar to being asleep. You cannot actually control yourself there. That's the same thing as in the dream, where you can see the dream, but you can't actually move the body unless you go into alpha, which is generally achieved between 3:30 to 5:30 in the morning. Some human beings go into alpha, and then it's easier for them to see their dream and then also to control their dream. But what if you're on alpha all the time? Now, this is a simple technique in the sense of how many different things how long you would have to go through to unlock certain abilities. But this one becomes most valuable because it gives you the ability to see. So the reason why I'm explaining to you like this is because there are individuals around you in your society. You think it's 1% of them that can see, meaning they can walk in between two planes. So the next thing for you to do is to realize how to level the playing field, how to actually become aware of what you have not been aware of. And it has a lot to do with your fears. The fear causes our system to draw back, to close up. So our third eye is closed up because we have a fear of seeing the netherworld. Now, physically, if you wanted to say, well, where is the netherworld physically? Like, what is the other correspondence on the planet of the netherworld? The deep ocean. That's why most of the temples and pyramids from the netherworld are still in the deep ocean. So that connection is now accounting for why most people are afraid of deep water. Okay? Like, they don't feel comfortable in the netherworld. It's more denser. It's harder to move. You need a lot more energy to move through there. It feels like a jello even. And this becomes the beginning of the trip for the Bifrost walker. Meaning the individual who is to achieve balance must walk over these fields. And the reason why I say that you have to deconstruct yourself is in the visualization, you are now tilling up the ground. Like, in its sense, the stinky beast is only fertilization. When you till it up and you start to deconstruct it, it becomes the compost.
Truthfulness.
And then you can begin to plant new seeds, not seeds based on a fake language, not seeds based on your misunderstandings of the Cabal and all the different hierarchies, etc. It's a new seed that is based on your full understanding of who you are and your reality, which is everything. And this gives you the ability to walk simultaneously between two worlds. And this is why most people were afraid, because they don't want to lose their identity. So I'm giving you the keys of how to keep what you think is your identity, while simultaneously tapping into your real potential as a soul, which is unlimited. And this technique, though, is like tightrope walking. You need to get good at it. And so we look into the difference between the subjective and the objective plane. The subjective plane is the realm where everything is connected. Everything that is created in the objective planes, which is the material world, have been created by the energies pulled from the subjective plane. So if you can see it as it is, the subjective plane is where souls exist. Now, the reason why you could be here on the planet is that you're attempting to achieve something that is one step above even where the soul would be at times. I mean, the soul is everything. So what is above being everything? Being nothing and everything at the same time. We have this way about us that needs to be dual at a certain point to confirm things. I call it the real. Like, if you say right now, the real thing to people, then you get some wild story that's not even true. But then if you say, but just give me the real thing. Oh, the real? Oh, okay. Yeah, so I'll tell you about that. Because there's a double confirmation that needs to happen after you get into duality to progress to the next stage. So now we have to see that we have to make these double confirmations within ourselves. We have to decide to bring the two hemispheres together So that way we can actually walk in this middle state of our consciousness where we can be balanced. That the wars that are waged in this world right now stem back parsecs. And you want to jump your 72-year-old life in here. Meaning that you're dealing with a conflict between material beings and beings of the netherworld. Supremely material or supremely ethereal. Now, the netherworld, again, is the netter world. A netter is a being that can cross between two planes. They are bridges. So, in the netherworld or netherworld tradition, they weren't about just trying to explain this. They were doing this. So, when you get this term Aryan, Aryan comes from the word Ari. Ari means a lion. It means a lion more times in Hebrew and in other language than it sometimes means the eagle. When the lion glorified himself, he became the eagle. But the reason why it's important to see this is because Ariel, or the angel, the lion angel, and that connection between the A in that language, and that being the first letter of most languages, we find out that the Aryans said that they were first. We got here first. We're here first. And then they put the pyramid out there and they put the lion face in front with the human lion face and the human body, etc. What are they saying? They're lion people. They're not black. They're not white. They're like what you were looking at in Avatar. Now you go to the Dravidians, because I mean, well, you're only mentioning one thing. You're right, because if you notice, those same Aryans connect also to that same lion that you see with Rastafarians. And that same lion that even you see in Britain right now, after the turning over of the throne and the covenants. And that's what they tell you in the Lion King. There's a bad lion and there's a good lion. There's Scar and then there's this other lion, right? This is because the first original people had the Ari bloodline in them. But there was also another group of people known as the Dravidians. The Dravidians were the ones working on the netherworld, or the planes that we needed to gain the DNA and the genes from, the primal material itself, the primordial goo. Who had to participate in that? If you ask someone now to go participate in the primordial goo, they'd be like, man, I'm scared of that. I'm too big, man. I'm not going to get in there. My shoes are going to get dirty. So who do you think actually went and created the foundation to all this? Dra. Who's Dra? Well, in Latin it means doctor. Dra is dragon. That is the Naga connection. That is a serpent connection. But guess what? You're talking about a genus that is so expansive, meaning you have dinosaurs, you have stegosaurus, you have lizards. So how can you limit, in the human race, and this is something I was thinking about today, it's so interesting. In the human race, there are other mammals in our race. There are koala bears, there are other mammals. But out of all the mammals, we are the ones that think on this level of consciousness and begin to use complex languages, etc. But don't you think maybe the same would be for the amphibians too? We have to start thinking about what is the potential of where we're really at, because most of this stuff is all separated by vibratory frequencies. If something became the foundation for what we're standing on right now, because they lived on this planet on a spiritual level before we got a vortex imploded into this, then they reside in another plane that we call the spiritual plane. And this is what the whole connection is with the reptiles and the dimension and what's going on. It is a primordial state of consciousness that is one of the foundations to the netherworld. It is mapped out on the body of the human as being below the waist, what we're standing on. So then, what happens then if you even want to destroy what you're standing on? Because if you look at the planet is green. Looks like all these green things to me belong to the same family. Last time I saw them on the astral plane, looks like we were actually once members of that family, and also 8 other families. Because when you're in the prism, every color kind of hangs out. Green hangs out with green, blue hangs out with blue. Everyone's got their own little hues and things. That's their individuality. But we're still in this family of this color spectrum. While the human being says, look guys, I'm just going to take all of the colors and I'm going to put them all into the same body. And then wonder why we have such a conflictive state of thought if we cannot find balance. If we cannot collapse all colors back into the clear light. As I talked about on the other show, you got people meditating on white light. That white is a color. Black is a color. Clear is the absence of color. You need to meditate on the clear light, if anything. So what we're talking about here is we're talking about giving people the ring back. Now, if you notice, a tree has rings, and each ring that it gets serves to strengthen it more and more. But it has to pursue through those seasons in order for it to get to that next ring. So we have to see reality, especially in this physical body, is being the ring. It is a collective of all of the experiences that people had that, man, you can only read about them in encyclopedias. Some of you can't even read about. Sailors, travelers, inventors, explorers. This is the lineage that we have to tap into. But what do we choose to tap into? The dark side of it. Meaning the ignorant side. Not the netherworld. Some people think the netherworld has to do with dark magic, Europa and Europe. No, that is the corruption. So there's another thing that needs to be brought forth here is about the others. The ones that you cannot see. They don't even feel like you deserve to see them. These are the spirits. Because we start talking about, in a deeper conversation, the difference between a spirit and a soul. A spirit being more of a classification of beings that you can encompass in the soul family, but they have separated themselves based on their ilk and their abilities. So we still have going on the ethereal planes some levels of division. And right now our world is locked in a battle with invisible forces. That's why I said don't visualize people, they are energies. They have learned to sustain themselves off of these kinds of realities. Getting energy from someone else. That's actually what's going on here. Why get energy from someone else when you're an atom? You can generate so much energy. Why would you ever need to borrow from someone else? If I told you once you activate the vessel, you are like an atomic gyroscope. That's the only reason why you can walk around now. You're on a globe that's supposedly spinning and you're upside down. The only thing that exhibits the proper object of where you would even be able to walk around in that kind of situation was a gyroscope. What does a gyroscope do? It constantly spins. What does the aura do? It constantly spins. So what happens if you increase the spin? If you increase the spin, then you start to tap into the other frequencies. You become biolocal. You start to be able to see what's next door. And so this is the beginning and the tapping into our next state of consciousness, because you have to make sure that you leave this husk for something greater. When you leave the body, you'll leave a shell here. It's based on phi. It'll be just like the ones laying out at the beach, except for this one will be made out of bones. But when you go to your next stage, because surely ye shall not die, you are immortal, the next world you go in, let it be your choice. Do not let it be another reality that you were attracted to because you were only attracted to the opposite. You wanted revenge. This is what happens when a person gets into the negative right brain. They get scarred up in there, and then they want to live a life in the negative left brain. And they bounce back and forth. They even do it in this life. They want to live the high level of consciousness, but at the same time want to grind people to the dirt and kill them, even though they can't die. You see what I mean? This is the signs of the conflictive mind, and we all suffer from it. It's one of the most unreported diseases. They don't want to report it. This is a product of when you go into low spin, you wobble. Like when the planet spins very fast, like a top, there's no wobble. Think about it. When you have a top and you spin it very fast, there's no wobble. But the more it slows down, it starts to wobble. That's why our planet's wobbly. That's why our auras are wobbly. That's why we're becoming partial now to either the right side or the left side, the masculine or the feminine. We're even reincarnating polarized. We come in as a male, we come in as a female, and then we play this game with these game masters. And that's why I say, I'm the game changer. I didn't exclude anything. I had enough imagination to put everything in. Go ahead and put that in the closet. Or go ahead and set that up in the bathroom. Go ahead and set that up in the big room downstairs. Meaning every time that there was a concept that may have some facts lingering on it, I didn't go off and just believe in it and live my life as if it was true. I stored it and said, let's see if we can find other connections to you. Because if you're really true, I'll find other connections. Like for instance, in the Atlantean tradition now, then you have, or the Atlantean and the Aryan, you have the lion. And the Dravidian, you have the dragon. So then, when you put them together, you get a composite being that is basically a lion dragon. Last time I saw that same composite being, it was known as Yaldabaoth, meaning it was known as the being that the Gnostics had such a problem with, because it was a being that thought that it was God and that it was the only God. Now I'm showing you it was our own consciousness. It's a zoomorphication of our own consciousness when we begin to worship ourselves as the gods in low esteem, just as bodies and as physical beings. This is the whole play of Christianity. The only goal out of all the rhetoric of Apollonius of Tyana and Pythagoras was to get you to believe that the pentagram or phi or the physical body is God. That's why the last age was when man, quote unquote, manna, the one who's made of material, flesh, deifies itself. And that's what, and then we call it the devil. It's like, oh my goodness, the devil. Yeah, he's Zeus, a diva. It's basically a fleshly being, but flesh is slowed down light. It is still a plasma-based life form, but slowed down plasma on wobble. That's why it's blind or partial. It likes chosen. It's jealous. This is all objective plane stuff. And what happens in the subjective plane is that it all merges into, it becomes the substance in which all this stuff is created. It knows how not to play this game if it doesn't want to, and how to play both games if it does. It's not stuck thinking it's one or the other. And this is what we need to realize, is that in this plane right now, our connectivity with each other is still based on the frequency that each of us are on. If you connect with people and their frequency is off, there's no frequency match. All sorts of things that happen. It takes you a while before you can line up with them. So we're trying to progress here. We're not just trying to say we found out the whole thing and we're all doomed. We're actually saying that, hey, I think that we haven't discovered enough. I don't think that the arcs that they were talking about on the Covenant had anything to do with this box with birds on top of it. I think it had everything to do with implosion. And that's another subject of this conversation, because what was in those books that were sequestered by the Paranormal Division, as they spent to today's equivalent of 16 billion, I believe, or $9 billion, today's equivalent of that, was put into the Paranormal Division to march soldiers into the area of Tibet to sequester the...
You don't even get me on cam, cause you know I'm the man. But even when I go on my tube, I don't even put myself on it, cause you know I'm the man. So everything I do is for a purpose.
You go to another world. You call this the dream now, but there's more of them. That's why each night you go into a different dream almost. How many of these dreams are there? Well, there's an infinite amount of worlds. So what if you can control that? So this is what we're talking about. We're talking about the knowledge of implosion. And then, but the issue with implosion is that once you